that did so many favors for Jews, been demonized as terrorist, vicious nation. Is that true? Or is it just a cheap Zionist, vicious propaganda which we're facing till now? The Zionist entity which controls the media, social media, radio station, television stations, and radio and the newspapers are trying to divert, trying to distort and change the history. Let me just remind you a little bit of history, how great is Jews lived among underneath the wings of Islam. In the first Caliph, Abu Bakr, and the followed Caliph, Ali Omar bin Khattab, they gave the fatwa to protect Jews. We Jews fairly pay the jizya, the tax for non-Muslims that live underneath the wings of Islam. We've been granted religious and economical rights in Iraq, in Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and all over the place till Morocco. When the Caliph established his Caliphate in Baghdad, we greeted him, yes, and he respected us so much. He gave a fatwa to respect the grandchildren of King David. And that's how we lived such a long time, with protection of the Muslims. Blood libels never existed by the Muslim countries. You can check it. It was only in Europe. Jews, by the end of the Caliphate from Bet Umayyah, the Caliph of the Abdurrahman I fled from Babylon, from Iraq to Spain. He created his own Caliphate. That was the golden era. 300 years the Jews have been respected and was full partners of the Muslim Caliphate with such a great times. Even our Al-Najdallah, Rabbi Shmuel the Nugid, he was the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Foreign Affairs in Spain till he died. That's Muslims knew how to exploit our knowledge in economy and science and belief, since we shared believe in one God, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Palestine, the Palestinians, which have been demonized as savages and animals, and I'd like to say that any Zionist that's saying that Palestinians are animals, he is the animal, he's the terrorist. Palestinian always, yes, opened the door of Palestine for Jews. When Jews been expelled from Spain, from Europe, they found a safe haven in Palestine. They opened the door for that, for us. And that's, we have only to say to them, thank you, good Palestinians. Palestinians never thought about building a military power while scared of Jews, because they knew that the immigration of Jewish people from the Arab countries, even from Europe, is only have one purpose, religious purpose, to live underneath the wings of Islam, to keep the Jewish Torah and to enjoy from the holiness of Palestine, but nothing more than that. Palestinians, when they saw that this evil Zionist colonial power who came to oust them from Palestine, then they started to build their military force, but it was too late, because the Zionists used and exploited their wonderful hospitality in Palestine. When they realized that that they have to start to resist the Zionists, it was too late. However, I can tell you something. Even though, but in 1936, after the Great Palestinian Revolt, which was crushed, unfortunately, by our British beloved government, the Palestinians saw that the Zionists are here to stay and to oust them. They still were welcoming Jews and respect them fairly. There was a gay rabbi, he was a rabbi of a Jewish community that wanted to to run away from Poland, which they suffered from so much of anti-Semitism, to come to Palestine. So he went to check if there's any way to still live with the Palestinians after what the Zionists are defying them and trying to take their land. He said, my friends, he wrote in a letter, the Palestinians are friendly people. We're not allowed to take their land, and they will welcome us. There's also the King Abdullah, the first king of Jordan, Abdullah I, the son of King Hussein from Saudi Arabia, said, Jews have been welcome in Palestine as long as they don't have any Zionist national aspiration. And as you know, my friend, Jews that shouldn't have any national aspiration, because any try to do such a thing, to get out of exile, would end up with a disaster and catastrophe, the same as we see now. Take a look at the Second World War, my friends. Albania, which is a small Muslim land, had hosted 7,000 Jews. All of them have been rescued and saved by the Holocaust, even though that there was German army for 3 years in Albania. The Muslims have hidden the Jews in mosques, in basements, and shared with them the bread and the water. That is a real Muslim hospitality. The king of Morocco, Muhammad V, have said to Hitler, I would object to deport the Jews from Morocco to Auschwitz. And indeed, they were saved. And that's happened in Libya, in Egypt, in all of the Arab countries. I myself, my parents, even though in the Second World War, there was a small group of Iraqi soldiers that decided to help the Nazis to clean up Baghdad. So they conducted the Farhud, the famous massacre that killed about 200 Jews. It's a terrible number. But how many Jews were saved? Tens of thousands of Jews. My mother told me that she was in the second floor as a child with 14 children with her mother and father. And while this group of soldiers came to the house and they were asking the landlord, step aside, would like to kill the Jews. He told them, on my dead body, these are my children. That is a Muslim hospitality, and that's never been mentioned anywhere. Zionists have a Yad Vashem, have a Zionist museum for every non-Jew that saved Jews. But you almost will never find Muslims there. Why? Because the Muslims are anti-Zionist. You can only have someone receive a plaque, receive an honor, a tree, and respect if he's a Zionist. But Muslims, no. Not from Albania, not from Egypt, not from Morocco, and even not from Iran. The Shah of Iran, Muhammad Reza Pahlavi, the father of the last Shah, have said to Hitler, we're not going to diminish the rights of the Jews among our community. The Jews are just first-class disobedience and citizens, and that's the way how it should remain. This colonial power, the Zionist movement that came to occupy Palestine and conducted one of the worst atrocities, expelling 1 million Palestinians that lived there for more than 1,000 years. 531 villages have been destroyed in such a vicious way. People that were hospitalized, Jews, have been driven out, and they're very painful. They're now about 7 million people. They would like to come back to their land, and they have the full right of return, as it's been mentioned by Resolution 194 by the United Nations, that even approved by the United States. A decision that's been ignored by the Zionist entity till now. So we're asking, first of all, that's this historical, terrible mistake that the world, the United Nations, were quieting by making the partition plan, allowing the Zionists conquer whole Palestine. Palestinians didn't have any military force, and they were occupied viciously by the Zionists and deported for them. Since then, my friends, the Zionist ethnic cleansing continue all over the place. In the Six-Day War, they deported 200,000 Palestinians from the West Bank to Jordan. They destroyed almost whole of Qalqilia, a city. That's not a Jewish moral. Jewish moral, well, I'll tell you how the Torah is supposed to behave to Jews. We're supposed to give charity for non-Jews. We're supposed to visit their sick people in hospitals. And we're supposed to bury their dead to give them a respectful burial. And that's how we did. We had outstanding relationship with our Muslim brothers for hundreds and hundreds of years. There's no reason why it should not remain like that. Especially by the Turkish Ottoman Empire that respected our religion for 450 years for their remaining in Palestine. Is there any solution that we can reverse this clock? Yes. Dismantling of this Zionist monstrous state has to come to an end. And the restoration and establishment of the Palestinian state from the river to the sea, which is capital, is Jerusalem. Stopping the genocide in Gaza, allowing food, clean water, not the dirty water with the Zionist entity give to the Palestinians. Clean water, medicines, food, removing a full removal of the siege, of this vicious siege on Gaza. I'll tell you what also, they destroyed 75% of the houses in Gaza. Okay, very nice of you. I'm calling for the United Nations to bring back, do you know that in Gaza there is 2.4 million Palestinians? 90% from them are not from Gaza at all. 90% of them are from Beer Saba, Ashkelon, Ashdod, and many other villages in south and central Palestine, and in Jaffa. And they're supposed to come back to their places. They don't need to rebuild their houses in Gaza. They're supposed to come back to their villages, to their houses. I spoke to many Palestinian people. They showed me a kushan, a whole paper, that where did they live? I told them, I believe you don't have to show me a paper. And he told me, you know what, Rabbi? We all come back together, inshallah. Well, the Palestinian ambassador told us like that. In the first place, that we're going to establish our state, you, Jews like you, and there's a lot of Jews like us, not like when people try to think that it's a handful. There's hundreds of thousands of Jews that came to a conclusion that the state of Israel is a disaster for Jews and Muslims, and it has to be revoked, it has to be dismantled. Then the Palestinians will be fairly, inshallah, would treat Jews, Muslims, and Christians. That's the only solution. Two-state solution, it's like someone who steals your house, which you have 6 bedrooms, and he tell you, I'll give you one small room, and I'll take the other 5 rooms. Is that normal? Is that normal? Does that make sense? No, no sense. One Palestinian jurisdiction all over the Palestine, living peacefully, Jews and Muslims and Christians, the same as it was before this Zionist revolution, that they learned us from other countries that they should have their own state, unfortunately. But now we have to talk a little bit about Gaza. Every hour there's 4 children, Palestinian children, get killed in Gaza. There's tens of thousands of houses be destroyed on a daily basis. It's impossible not to believe. When Iraq invaded Kuwait, the United Nations right away imposed the severe sanctions, no-fly zone, peacekeeping force to kick out the Iraqi forces from Kuwait. And yet we hear now one of the worst genocides in Gaza, and no peacekeeping force been sent, no fly zone been imposed, and even what? The Zionists have captured, have captured the crossing, the Rafah crossing, for one reason, to starve the people of Gaza. We have to help them in the first ceasefire. We have to be united, Jews, Muslims, and Christians, to send food, medicines, and clothing to our starving Palestinian brothers. That's it's a payback time for the good that they did for us during the history. So inshallah, we're going to see this dismantling of this Zionist state and the establishment of a Palestinian state from the river to the sea, which is capital Al-Quds al-Sharif, Madinat al-Salah, and we all together will be gathered there to worship God, one God. Inshallah, thank you.